Welcome back to Learn SKN, and today we are continuing to look at the May-June or the June-July 2021 Economics Paper 2. So that's the June-July 2021 Economics Paper 2. And so we would have completed number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we're looking at the last one on this paper, number 5. But before we jump into it, you know what to do? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Also, share with your friends, your cousins, your family, whoever. Just share the content so everybody get the nice grade 1s on their CXC exams. Alright, so the first one for number 5. State the meaning of each of the following acronyms. And we have CET and WTO. And so CET stands for Common External Tariff, and WTO stands for World Trade Organization. Alright, so that's World Trade Organization, the World Trade Organization. That's WTO. And we have Common External Tariff for CET. Simple as that, 1 mark. Differentiate between each of the following pairs of economic concepts. We have absolute and comparative advantage, and we have balance of trade and balance of payments. So if you're looking at absolute advantage, what that is, that simply means that a country can produce more, outright more of a certain good or service with the same amount of resources compared to another country. So we're talking about raw numbers here. So in absolute advantage, it means that, okay, if both of us have, let's say, 10 tons of resources, I can produce 50,000 units. You can only produce 30,000. So I have the absolute advantage. I can just produce more, raw numbers, more, right? So that's absolute advantage when one country can produce more of a certain good or service given the same level of resources than another country, right? So that's absolute advantage. Now, comparative advantage now is a bit different. Comparative advantage is where you can produce the goods or services at the lowest opportunity cost than another country. So they're saying you are more efficient at producing that particular good than the other country. It doesn't mean that you produce more than them in raw numbers, but you are more efficient at producing those goods and services than another country. So comparative advantage occurs when a country can produce a good at the lowest opportunity cost when compared with other countries which have the same resources. So we're saying one country doesn't have to give up as much as the other to produce the same thing. You're more efficient at producing that particular good than the other country. That's the difference right there. One, absolute, you can just produce more. Comparative means you can produce more efficiently. Now, if you're looking at the difference between balance of trade and balance of payments, so the balance of trade is simply the difference between imports and exports. That's the balance of trade. It's the difference between the imports and exports. So your exports minus imports, that answer would be your balance of trade. The balance of payments now is the difference between the inflows and the outflows of payments that a country makes. So the inflows are that's in money coming into the country from payments, from overseas, and the outflows, that's the payments that the country has to make to other countries overseas. That's a big difference between the two. So balance of payments is a summary of the payments and receipts of transaction between a country and the rest of the world for a given period. So it's about the payments and the receipts, the difference between the payments and the receipts for transactions done between the country and the rest of the world. That's balance of payments. Balance of trade is simply the difference between imports and exports. You have it right here, balance of trade. So when you minus the imports and the exports, the answer you get, that is the balance of trade. And that's the difference between those economic concepts. Next question. Explain how an increase in interest rates can improve the current account of the balance of payments. So explain how an increase in interest rates can improve the current account of the balance of payments. So if we look at the components of the current account, we see that the major part of this one is exports, imports, right? Transfers, investments. Those are what makes up the current account. And so you can have a swing one way or the other. You might have a lot of imports or a lot of exports, whichever. Now the question is asking us to say how explain how an increase in interest rates can improve the current account of the balance of payments. So how can it improve the current account? Now what we're saying is that we have to find ways to, in order to improve the account, the current account, that means we have to do one of two things, right? We have to reduce imports or increase exports, right? Reduce imports, increase exports. Now where an increase in interest rates comes into play is that this can actually reduce the imports, because a high interest rate means that persons are no longer going to the bank, or less persons are going to the bank to get a loan to facilitate the purchasing of certain things. So demand would actually fall in the economy. The demand for goods and services will fall in the economy, and that includes imports, foreign goods. And so that would cause an improvement in the imports over exports, and so the current account should improve. Because they're saying here is that high interest rates equals lower demand for goods and services, including imports. And so if you reduce the imports, keeping exports at the same or higher, then that would improve your overall current account. Your balance of payments should improve, because imports means that money is leaving the country. Exports mean the country is gaining money. So when people got a lot of money, extra money, they would import more. And so if you increase the interest rates, that makes money more expensive. And so not many persons are going to go to the bank for a loan to buy that new car, or buy that new washing machine, or import stuff, right? So that is how an increase in the interest rate can improve the current account of the balance of payments. 4 marks for that one. And of course, this was discussed in a previous video, so you can go back and look at that video. Explain how a current account surplus on the balance of payments can increase employment. So in continuing looking at the D-now, explain how a current account surplus on the balance of payments can increase employment. So let's see how this goes. So what exactly is a surplus on the balance of payments? Now a surplus occurs when inflows are greater than outflows. So more money coming into the country than is leaving, right? So that's a surplus. Reasons could be that, you're importing less, is a fall in demand for imported goods, increasing demand for our goods, right? So foreigners want our goods, and so we're exporting more, right? And things like that, right? More foreigners visiting the country, and things like that. Those are some that might cause a surplus. But as it relates to employment, right, a surplus might mean falling unemployment, as foreigners demand more locally produced goods and services. Firms will expand to meet the increasing demand and to employ more labor. So right there they're telling us what the surplus would lead to. Because if you're looking at a surplus, that means that more people want our goods. More people overseas want our goods. So we're exporting more goods and services. And so that means that more tourists coming to the country. And so, they want our produce. And so if more tourists come into the country, look at how that would impact the hotel industry, the farming industry, things like that. Hotel industry, high occupancy, meaning more maids, more housekeepers, more bartenders, more farmers to produce goods for the restaurants and the bars in the hotels. If you're looking at more exports, that means that, as I say here in the book, you have to make more. You have to increase your production because the demand is up for your product. And so if you're increasing production, you need to expand your labor force. And as such, you need more and more people because demand going up, so you need more and more people to produce your goods. And so you're going to hire more people. Right? So all those are ways you can see how a surplus can lead to improve in employment, higher employment. You need more people to work to meet the demand for our local goods from foreigners. Whether it is tourists coming in, whether it is our goods are seen as a high quality and everybody want them over there, so we have to export more and things like that. Right? So that's how we can look at that question in particular when asking about how a current account surplus of balance of payments can increase employment. The whole idea here is that demand goes up for your local produce and products, goods, your local goods and services, demand going up, and to match that demand, you have to expand production. And in expanding production, you have to employ more persons. And so employment will increase because of that trickle-down effect. Alright, so the beautiful thing about these questions is that you can read the textbook and some of the answers are just right there in your face, right? Number 5E now is asking us to do some small calculations. Nothing too involved, nothing too messy, just some small calculations. So they say here, Table 2 shows the current account of Caritopia. And so we're looking at, we have the current account right here. So we have exports of goods, imports of goods, balance of trade in goods. We have the numbers attached to each of them, well, except for the exports, which we're going to find out later. Export of services, import of services, balance of trade in services. And so what they're asking us here now, using the information in table 2, calculate each of the following. And they say the value of export goods, the value of current account. And so we have to fill in this right here, right? You have to fill it in right here. So we can see that the balance of trade in goods is negative. So that gives us an idea as to the level that we're looking at here. And so you realize that the balance of trade is negative. And so we're wondering, okay, if it's negative, that simply must mean that export is also negative. So most things are negative here. So we're looking at it right here. How we work, we have to work backwards for this one for sure. Work backwards for this one. So the value of export of goods. Balance of trade in goods equal exports minus imports. So we know that. Exports equal balance of trade in goods. So you have to work backwards. You have to transpose. In goods plus imports. So exports equal negative 40. Put in a bracket there. Plus negative 425. And the answer here is negative 465. Negative 465. So that's the answer for E1. Right? So we're asking for the balance, the value of the export of goods, and so that's negative 465. Clearly it's going to be a smaller number than the imports. Then let's say the value of current account, the value of the current account. And so going back to our maths right here, the value of the current account, merchandise balance plus service balance plus net inflows. That is how you find your current account. And so in our textbook, we have a nice layout of our balance of payment and everything like that. They have a nice little layout right here. So your current account, that's your export of goods, import of goods, export of services, import of services, balance of trade, that's the sum of all of them, and then transfers and investment income. And so we're looking for all those, we pull them from the table. We're looking for them, pull them from the table, and so we go. So balance merchandise or visible trade, that's what we found here. That's the net one is negative 40, right? Negative 40. We have it right here on the paper, negative 40 right there. And then we're looking for the service, right? Invisible trade, the service, and again we're going to pull it from here. And so we have negative 20, right? Negative 20, all of them in millions, of course. So negative 20 right there. And then we're looking for the net income flows. And we have negative 35 million. It's really not doing too good. This country not really doing too good. Negative 35 million right there. And so when we add them all up together, we get negative 95 million. And that's how we get the answer for that one. Alright, so the math stays right on the screen so you can work the maths. So you can figure out, I mean, all this stuff are right there. You just plug in accordingly. Good. So we're moving on now. Moving on. Part 3. Suggest 2 policies which may be used to address the current account deficit. How can we address the current account deficit? And so we have the policies that we can use here. You can use your based on what you're trying to accomplish, we can always use our deflationary monetary policy or fiscal policy to try to get this thing sorted out. So, measures to reduce deficit. Textbook right here again. So, in a country, if a country has a balance of payments deficit, it means that more funds are flowing out of the country than it is earning. So you can have reduction in aggregate demand, and you can use the deflationary monetary policy or deflationary fiscal policy. Those are policies that will reduce demand. And so if you reduce overall demand, that also includes the demand for foreign goods. And so if you reduce the demand for foreign goods, that means that you're going to reduce imports. And that can go towards helping to fix the problem of the deficit in the current account. So that's one way. You can have import controls, where you can either ban certain things from being imported, that's what you call embargo. You can use a quota system, where you allow a certain amount of certain things to be imported. And then you have a tariff, which is a tax on imports. So import controls is another policy you can use. You can either use deflationary monetary policy, deflationary fiscal policy, import controls, or you can use devaluation. That is where based on your exchange rate system, you can use the powers to bring down the value of your currency, which would make it more expensive for persons to import goods, because all of a sudden you're going to need more of your local currency to equate to the foreign currency. So we might have needed maybe 2 titties for 1 US. Now all of a sudden you need 4 titties for the same 1 US. So at home, that would kind of dissuade persons from importing. Whereas it can boost export, because for the foreigners, our products are now cheaper in terms of quality. I mean, not quality, in terms of the costs. So that can boost exports and at the same time reduce the imports, and so that would help with the overall deficit. Alright, and just like that, the owners said suggest, so just like that, you have your 2 marks, right? 1 mark each. And so that's it for the May-June or June-July 2021 econ paper. That's the last question for that one. So now we have completed question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're gonna upload the paper 1 for the same year. So you know how to find out if we upload the paper 1. You subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to know when Learn SKN uploads the paper 1 for the June-July Econ 2021 paper. Alright, so that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Oh, and don't forget, share, and share again.